Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? So we're talking about AI tools today, and so you remember I threw a little bit of a curveball at you at the end of class on Monday. Said that everybody's going to have to present on whatever the topic they came up with. This does not have to be a formal presentation, but another curveball. Ben is going to do all the presentations for every group. I'm just joking. Uh, everybody's really excited about that except for Ben. Ben had a smile on his face, but I think it was kind of look of panic, a real quick look of panic, or more along the lines of Dr. Barnes would not do that to me. No, it does not need to be a very formal presentation. I just want to hear a little bit about what you came up with and why you think it's relevant. So, kind of the learning objectives and what your suspected outcomes are. Yeah, I just thought it'd be a fun way to mix things up a little bit. Yeah, my definition of fun may differ from yours, but yeah, so before we get started, I want to just remind everybody about what's coming up. So Friday, we are not meeting for class. We do not have a presenter coming in, so we will not be meeting. I don't know if anybody was aware of that, if you tried to persuade Dr. Liu to also cancel class on Friday. I know that's a thing that graduate students do. It's like, Dr. Barnes isn't meeting for class. You should cancel class too, Dr. Liu. And yeah, so I'm not encouraging you to do that, by the way. For those of you who are whispering and talking about potential for that, no. I was like, but yeah, if she does it on her own, then yeah, more power to you. That's a day that you get to sleep in. So yeah, something to think about. Monday, we're gonna do our last Monday and Wednesday, we're doing our last topic. We're gonna be doing AIS, our AI presentations, obviously AIS, but AI environmental concerns, so ESG stuff. And then remember Friday, we don't have class, but you've got a lot of stuff due. So that is the absolute last due date for your research presentation deliverables, even though technically they're due on Friday. I gave you guys an extension if you wanted it, which is fine. You also have your Ultrix assignment due. And keep in mind that there's a quiz that is going to be scheduled for Friday. I think I have it unlocked for like after class on Wednesday, so you can take it early if you want to, but it's formally set for Friday. I think you can do a little bit early if you want to get out rid of that, but we will not be meeting for class. So that's like 2 Fridays off in a row. 2 Fridays off in a row. Like, what kind of value do you get from that in other classes? So most of our classes are Tuesday, Thursday, so they get every Friday off Dr. Barnes. It's like I have not quite evolved to that point yet. Not quite evolved to that point. So today we're going to be talking about models and practices of artificial intelligence. This is going to be an interesting topic for me to teach in subsequent years, not only because some of the stuff that I talk about here I overlap with my undergraduate AIS course, because we've started doing a lot of artificial intelligence talk in that course. When you all took it with me, we talked a little bit about it, but only in the context of the course. We actually talk about it multiple times over the semester now. So that's something that I think was a gap in my teaching of that particular course, and something that I've rectified over a period of time. And I think a lot of students are really excited about the prospects of AI and also a little bit intimidated by it. Now, I don't want to say that you all are as intimidated as the professors that you're learning from. The professors that you're learning from are totally intimidated by it. And you want evidence of that, just come see one of our training sessions when we talk about AI tools. Like some of the older professors, I'm not going to mention any names, but you probably can guess, they are just kind of flummoxed, and they kind of give up halfway through and then just hang their heads in shame, just because this is a technology that they are not comfortable with. And what I try to explain to them is like, there's no wrong way to eat this Reese's peanut butter cups. This Reese's peanut butter cup. It's basically however you want to approach it. I'm just giving them tips and guidelines, but they can use this in a number of different ways. And it's fascinating. Every single time I've dealt with an educator who's my age or around my age or even older than that, they are just kind of like, no, this is too much. This is too much. Unless you tell me exactly what to do, I cannot use this technology, which is interesting because that's not the way this technology works. It's not like Ultrix or Excel where you've got specific pathways you're supposed to follow. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach this that can achieve value. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the intuition behind that and why it's important for you all to understand and get running on the ground floor, because this is only something that's going to evolve over time. And it depends on who you talk to. Some people say that we're kind of reaching a peak right now, we're reaching a plateau. Even so, if we reach the plateau right now, what AI tools can do right now are extremely impressive. Some of the things we do. So I guess I see. I don't know if I can pull it up. Let's see if I can pull it up. Just as a little bit of context for what I showed some of my AIS students. So we have a series of AI activities. I was learning about the idea of vibe coding. Has anybody heard the term vibe coding before with AI? Yeah, this is coming increasingly common. I don't know how to program in HTML. Let me just say that right now. I've never taken coding in HTML, and I heard about somebody who was creating HTML code using AI tools to do it. So I thought I would try to see it do it myself. And so you can kind of see I've got a few of them up here. So let's go ahead and look at one real quick just for context. Yeah, open it with Microsoft Edge. So I created a crossword puzzle in this, and so it's kind of interesting because this is a crossword puzzle that I tried to create in Excel, and it was a much longer task. This took me about 45 minutes to put together, and most of that was just getting the formatting, the alignment right. But oops, it's got a set up to where I can toggle through using the tab and the enter keys. And then when I get the word right, it highlights in green, very similar to like how I do conditional formatting. So that's one. Then I decided to go a little step further, and I did something called the Monty Hall simulator. Has anybody heard the Monty Hall problem? So this is from a TV show called Let's Make a Deal. And Let's Make a Deal was notorious for offering fabulous prizes and really bad prizes. And the final puzzle, the final prize of the thing is that basically there's one really fabulous prize and behind two doors are really bad prizes, and they call them goats. Okay. Because oftentimes they will give away an actual goat. Okay. And what a prize. The idea being, though, is that if you select a door and you're shown a door that does not have a good prize behind it, should you stay with your original door or switch? And the intuition is it doesn't matter because you have a 50-50 chance of winning. You've shown that. But the logic suggests, mathematical logic actually says that you should switch doors if you're shown a bad door for the first time, because you actually have a 66% chance or 67% chance of winning. So I decided to create a simulator to where I see if I could do that and just basically allow you, and you can kind of see here, they're just going to, over a long period of time, you can kind of see what the results are depending on which door you select and what your options select are. And you can kind of see the results. And this is a very simple version. I had versions of it that I tried to improve later on to do calculation of percentages, but then the goat stopped appearing. So I decided to keep it up. And then one more just for kind of context. This is actually going to be very relevant to you all. Do you remember we did amortization schedules earlier in the semester? So I said, I tried to see if I could replicate some of the things we did in amortization schedules. And so I just basically said $200,000 loan term, 360 months, annual interest rate, 6%, start date 01/01/2026, and then generate the schedule, and just basically did all the work that we put together in amortization for us. So somebody's going to watch this video at some point in the future. They're going to come back and watch my video and say, okay, I can just bypass that Excel work and just copy Dr. Barnes' HTML. Fortunately, I don't have this published anywhere, but yeah, it's kind of cool some of the things you can do with the AI tools. And again, this is all stuff that in total probably took me like an hour to an hour and a half to put together. It's just very, very impressive about kind of the work that you can put together with just a little bit of effort. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the boring stuff, the technical stuff, and then we'll start talking about some of the things that you guys put together. So I want you to characterize some concepts that you hear bandied about a lot. You probably heard the term artificial intelligence a lot. Probably heard the term machine learning a lot. You may have heard deep learning to some degree. Now, we talked about deep learning back in AIS very briefly. And so I wanted to compare and contrast these two. And so I have three definitions, and I'm going to pick on one person for all three definitions. That's Jared, okay? Because I'm good at picking on Jared. All right, so Jared, what were your definitions or your group's definitions for these particular concepts?
We had artificial intelligence is defined as a branch of computer science that aims to simulate human intelligence in software and machines. Machine learning is a subset of AI in which developers create algorithms that enable programs to recognize patterns in data and learn from experiences. Deep learning is an even more specialized subset of machine learning that uses a neural network inspired by the human brain to process complex information and make decisions.
Very good. So yeah, pretty good summary of how this operates. Now, these are all very technical definitions, and the question is, how do we actually think about this logically? And you all know my teaching pattern, my teaching styles. If something's really, really complicated, I break it down to analogy, and everybody's like saying, "Oh, great, he's going to talk about food again." No, no, this is not a food analogy. Okay, so I'm sorry to disappoint you, but how do we think about it? So The relationship is depicted here in this blog piece. So the AI models, that artificial intelligence is the broadest discipline. Machine learning is a subset of that, and deep learning is a subset of machine learning. And so, how does this actually work from a practical perspective? How can we think about this? And it occurs to me that this is kind of human development. This is analogous to human development. So think about it. When you're very young, you're just a newborn or you're only a few years old, artificial intelligence is kind of where you're at. It's very, very heavily supervised, your activities. You get some license and you get some freedom. But for the most part, there's restrictions on the direction that you can go and the things that you can do. You know, if anybody's ever helped baby proof a house, you have to be very, very careful to make sure that you cover all dangerous parts to make sure that there's no hazards there. Then once you get older, once you get into your you get kind of more cognitive sense of the real world and understand the dangers, then that's kind of where you're at for machine learning. There's a little bit of let off the leash. There's less supervision. There's still supervision, but a lot of the work that you do, a lot of the things that you do, the activities are going to be unsupervised. And the deep learning is kind of when you reach kind of the teenage years to full adulthood. That's where they say that you've got full cognitive development. You're still learning and still developing, but for the most part, you don't have you're aware of the dangers that you're you're exposed to, and so you're not going to do anything that's innately foolish simply because you don't have the knowledge in that area. So deep learning is kind of like you're led on your own. You kind of, let's say, all the dangers that you face, you're going to be expected to be able to articulate and be able to adapt to those as necessary. So that's kind of how I think about these concepts, is that it's just phases of development, which makes sense because the way they classify deep learning is to say that's actually emblematic of human neural development. And so the neural pathways, and the way I explain this to my AIS students, the undergraduate students, is think about how you would answer a question from the perspective of deep learning. So let's say that I give you all an essay question. And I say, I want you to write me a 200-page essay, or 200-page essay, a 200-word essay on this topic. And you write it out and you hand it in, and it's very well written. It's very well, concepts are very well defined. And then next week, I say, I want you to write a 200-word essay on exactly the same question. So are you going to repeat your essay verbatim? I mean, so you probably saved it on a computer, so I'm just going to hand in the same thing. But no, assuming that I had you do this by hand and I had you replicate this task every time, are you going to hand in verbatim the same essay that you gave me? It's going to be very close, probably the same themes, the same ideas that you conveyed in the first essay, but the wording that you use, the patterns that you use, the format, they're going to be slightly different. So the idea being is that you follow different pathways to reach the same conclusion. And so that's how human brain works, and that's how we want to actually characterize deep learning. And to a lesser extent, all types of AI tools are going to follow that same pathway. Okay, according to the second article, what are Ethan Mollick's 4 rules of co-intelligence? I'm going to skip because I felt like last time I talked to Austin, I picked on her. I gave her really hard questions last time. So I'm giving you the easiest question of the day, Austin. So what does your group say for the 4 rules of co-intelligence? Yep. And so those are all pretty basic. We're going to talk about those in more in depth. I just felt like I owed Austin one on this one because, yeah, the questions I asked last time were just really, really challenging. So I didn't forget. Okay. So if you're gonna write me up on my evaluations for picking on you, I can give you an easy one on that one. So there we go. So yeah, and these are very, very profound rules, but they're also very simple in context. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about what these represent. So going back to the first article, these are the group questions. So according to the first article, what are the models of generative AI, and briefly define each model? So we have 4 models, so I'm going to talk to 4 groups. So Jack, what did your group come up with for the first model?
You said that foundation model or type of model, and it is a deep learning model that's pre-trained to perform tasks.
Yes.
The model is trained on a vast amount of data so it can adapt to differences.
Good. So foundation models are kind of our standard one. And these are kind of how we think about traditional AI tools, the ones that we utilize very frequently. There's going to be a little bit of a caveat to that, but foundation models, one of the identifications is given is like ChatGPT was given as a foundational model in this context. All right. Second type of AI model, Hannah, what'd your group come up with?
um, models. They learn from multiple types or modes of data, like images, audio, video, and speech.
So, sorry, go ahead.
they can respond with a greater variety of results.
Yes, and this one's a pretty adaptive one. It's very, very interesting that we think about multimodal models. Remember, we talked about in AIS, we talked about how the different types of data analysis, and we said that we are kind of constrained as human beings to structured data analysis. It's very, very difficult to move outside of that. We're starting to see AI tools now that can adapt and can analyze multiple modes of data and can basically use varieties of that data to develop new outputs. Now, there are some caveats to that. There's some issues with that we're going to go into a little more detail about. But for the most part, a multimodal model kind of ignores the constraint that we're supposedly constrained to that we talked about back in AIS, which is that structured versus unstructured data paradox. What is the third model, Brett?
Large language model, text, deep learning methods combined with natural language processing.
Yeah, so deep learning, one of those things we said is very profound and operates like the human brain, and natural language processing, which operates like a torture device. So if you remember natural language processing in AIS, when we talked about that, I compared that to the customer service chatbots that you see on websites, and I absolutely hate those, okay? But it appears that the large language models have used those to a much greater effect, to not just run you around in circles and make you frustrated and want to pull out your hair, if you have any remaining, that is, obviously, that you can see my problem. But that's how we can characterize large language models. And then the final one, we'll go back to Jared for this one. So what was the final one, Jared?
Diffusion models, and these are models that split images into tiny pieces to analyze patterns and features. They can reference these pieces to create new AI generated.
Good. So diffusion models basically break things down and they assign weights to different components, and then they can actually use that to develop different images. They can actually develop things. Images are kind of the common use for diffusion models, but they can actually move past that and move to text and video as well. And I believe audio as well. But diffusion models are very heavily used with respect to image generation. Now, let's talk really quickly about the last part of this. Okay, so on question number 4, I asked you to look at the first article to actually identify if a single AI tool could employ multiple models, and if so, provide an example. If not, explain why. So here's the $1,000 question, Jack. And by $1,000, it's proverbial. I'm not going to give you and your group $1,000. So what is this? What is the answer to this question? Can we actually employ multiple models within the same framework?
We think yes.
Okay, what's your example on this?
The example with ChatGPT, that is not only is it a foundation model mentioned, but it's also multimodal, generate images.
Yes. So ChatGPT is kind of a jack of all trades model, and we tend to think of that as a foundational model. That's kind of how it's defined in this article. But when we use ChatGPT vernacular, we always tend to also refer to it informally as a large language model. And as Jack pointed out, it's also integrated other AI tools into its platform, so it can actually do multimodal and diffusion model activities. So basically, all of the models are being incorporated into a single use model that can actually do all of these things. So the answer is pretty clear yes on that one. Now, this kind of holds only because the same rules that we think about for AI tools hold true, is the idea that it's going to analyze data, whether that be structured or unstructured data, break it down into pattern recognition pieces, which are called tokens, and then return those token values depending on their weight. And this is kind of an interesting little critique of AI models, especially with respect to image generation. Has anybody seen AI art before? I hope most everybody in the room has seen AI art before. AI art tends to look very, very frequently like the source art that it comes from. And what is the reason for that? Well, the idea being is that certain pieces of the art, certain aspects of the art are going to be held more concrete, or more, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? They're going to be held more important for the piece of artwork than others. This is why a lot of our existing artists have problems with AI generated art, or training AI art tools on their own art, simply because AI tends to rip off existing artwork. There was an interesting study that was trying to say, let's use AI art to replicate a version of the Mona Lisa. And guess what AI was able to do every single time? basically depict the Mona Lisa exactly as it was rendered, because it's such an iconic piece of artwork. It was really hard to recognize what parts and what tokens are not important that we can actually remove and replace with something else. So all these different versions of the Mona Lisa just basically look like the original Mona Lisa. There were minor differences, but that was basically it. So yeah, certainly some concerns in that area, but some areas that we can talk about in a little bit more depth. So let's go ahead and get to talking about Moloch's 4 rules. So the first rule, what is the first rule of co-intelligence? Um, he refers to something called the jagged frontier. So we're going to ask this question together. What is the jagged frontier, and how does this concept relate to the first rule? So Hannah, what did your group say on this one?
Refers to AI thinking differently than we do, resulting in it being good at some tasks and bad at others. And then inviting AI to the table means using it and becoming familiar with how it thinks and works. And familiarity is the key to that. Yeah.
Right. So AI tools tend to be very good at some tasks and not very good at others. Now, this is going to diminish over time. We're going to see, and I think if I were to actually compare the results to last year's performance to this year's performance, we probably see a market improvement. At one point, there was a speculation that AI tools were doubling in capacity every 8 months. That has kind of slowed down since that expectation came out, but it was going at a very fast pace for a long period of time. The simple truth is the reason why is because AI tools are starting to run out of data that can absorb to actually improve the models. So the algorithms are not evolving as quick at a quicker pace, but it is improving over time. It is improving over time. And so we do need to actually understand what it's good at and what it's not good at to actually find areas for improvement. And the areas are not intuitive either. So if we talked about generating a piece of artwork or generating an essay on a particular topic, how effective do you think an AI tool would be at something like that, like this, particularly a large language model? Very good. They're very good. They're very, very effective in that. So creative activities, counterintuitively, AI tools are very good at. What about very simple math tasks? Not very good at all. Not very good at all. If you ask it to count the number of words and letters in the word strawberry, it may be able to do that now, but for like 2 years, every time you asked it to do that, it would say there are 2 R's in strawberry, which is a technically correct statement, but there's actually 3 R's in total in strawberry. Okay, so it's not very good at that. The reason why is kind of the idea that it's trained on data, so it looks at what the feedback and the responses are out on the data it's trained on. And if we're talking about internet information that's available on the internet, then that's data that's not necessarily always correct. And you ask somebody on the internet how many R's in strawberry, somebody's just gonna say, oh, 2, and just automatically put that in. So there's apparently more people in the world, or more people in the United States, or I guess who speak English language, who think there are 2 R's in strawberry than 3, because the AI tool just automatically responded that. And I remember having an argument with an AI tool about this. I said, I don't think that you're correct. And then it said, let me check. Yeah, there are definitely 2 R's in strawberry. So I actually had to have the AI tools count the number of R's in strawberry, which it was very, very hesitant to do. And then it came back and say, you're right, there are 3 R's in strawberry. So I know more than AI tool, so I'm good. I'm good with that. Yeah. Anyway, be able to understand and to be able to reinforce those particular concepts, that's going to be very, very important as far as our analysis of AI. But let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Moloch's second rule. So several instructors and professionals have said, perhaps directly to you, that AI tools will not replace jobs of individuals who can effectively use AI tools or replace those who cannot. Now, I know I've said that. Has anybody heard that from any other instructors or professors? If you've not, that's going to be a common catchphrase. That's something that's very important for you all, and for reasons that I can go into a lot of depth at. I will tell you a horror story. For those of you who are taking auditing next semester, you're going to hear my horror story about AI and replacement of jobs. And it's something that's going to be a bit of a wake-up call. For those of you who are in this classroom right now, let me just say that your development of acumen and skills is going to be more profound and more pronounced than ever before, simply because there are going to be skills that you have developed over these past 4 years that are not going to be as necessary anymore because of AI tools. And so that's something that we'll get into a lot more depth on moving forward. But for right now, I basically said that made this statement, and we're going to kind of evaluate the statement. So does the discussion of the second rule reinforce or refute this notion? Brett, what did your group say on this?
I would say it reinforces the idea that individuals would effectively AI take jobs that people would not. Malik says that whatever a person is best at AI, whatever a person is best at, AI will not be able To be better than the person at a specific task right now. So if they're effectively use AI, you need to make it part of what we see.
That's right. So be able to use AI effectively is very important. It's going to be something that's going to define a lot of your careers. It's very interesting because I talk to professionals, and older professionals are kind of in the similar boat of the older instructors here, not using AI tools at all. And they don't have a really need to, because they've got an established job and they're only going to be there for 3 more years. And so they've said, I'm not going to change my routine. But people my age and younger, they're trying to get the skill set caught up, and they're trying to get to the point now where they're using these on a more regular basis, because as a way to a massive, massive effect on productivity. It's going to have a big change on the impact in the business world. Now, let's go ahead and put this in a context where everybody can understand. Has anybody heard about the research of the of AI taking the CPA exam? I think a few of you are talking a little bit about that in your research projects. So this was done as a study back in 2023, and ChatGPT 3.5 was asked to take the CPA exam. How well did it do on the CPA exam? One of the early versions of ChatGPT. Scored in the 30s on each section, okay? So that was a little bit disappointing. So that's not a good signal. But then they changed the prompts, they improved the prompt capabilities, and they put it in ChatGPT 4.0, which is the new iteration. It kind of took adoption in late 2023, early 2024. How well did the ChatGPT 4.0 with good prompts do on the CPA exam? Yeah, it's actually slightly higher than that, but yes, really, really high. It was in the 85s to 90s. So on the depending on the section. So how many people would be very happy if they got an 85 average on all sections of CPA exam? Everybody's hand should be up in the air, by the way. Okay. All right. Even if you're not planning on taking the CPA exam, if you just got a default 85, be like, well, I'll take the CPA credential. Okay. Yeah. So everybody should be really thrilled about that. Now, this is an important point, though. Is 85 the same as getting a 99, which 99 is the highest possible score you can get on the CPA exam? Are those the same numbers? No. So it means that ChatGPT is good. It is not perfect. It means there's room for improvement, and there's room for expertise knowledge in that area. That is where your contribution comes in, is that if you're going to be on average, then you're probably going to be outstripped by something that AI tools can do. If you're going to be exceptional, that is where you have potential to add value. Now, it doesn't have to be on everything. I'm not saying that you have to be ready to score 99 on all sections of the CPA exam, but you should kind of start considering, what is it that I can actually improve AI's capacity for? What is it that I'm a level of expertise that I can actually add value? Because that is going to be your incidental benefit. That is where you're going to be, your skills are going to be pronounced and profound. All right, moving on to the fourth rule of co-intelligence. All right, so I skipped the third rule because that was going to be part of your presentation. Given this rule, why is it necessary to train people on the use of AI tools at all? So fourth rule of co-intelligence was saying that this is the worst version of AI you will ever use. Now, that sounds like a bad statement, but that's actually a really, really great statement, because it means that if there's gaps in the AI tools that we're using right now, those gaps are going to be less pronounced, or they're going to disappear in the future. So we have this idea of prompt engineering and making sure we have clean, clear, consistent prompts. This is something that's very, very important in this day and age. In some point in the future, these prompts are not going to be nearly as detailed. We're just going to be able to provide very vague type of information, and the AI tool will be able to fill in the gaps and say, I know what you're asking for. Here's the response. So why is it still important for us to be able to train on how to develop these prompts, how to promote AI queries, how to use AI tools effectively in this regard, when that's not necessarily something we're going to have to need in the future? Austin, what's your group say on this?
And even though the article claims that everything we use today and AI is already obsolete, it's important to
Yes. So something that we're going to be talking about is, or we've talked about many times, is kind of the expansion of expertise and expansion of required knowledge for using tools. And to some degree, AI tools are going to be somewhat intuitive, and they're going to be easier to use. It's kind of like using an iPad and using that user interface. If you've never used an iPad before, it's fairly easy to adopt and adapt to. That being said, some aspects of AI tools are going to require some pre-existing established knowledge. It's a little bit like if you've not gotten the basic training in Excel, and you come into this class and I say, all right, guys, we're going to be developing a series of pivot tables. Or we're going to be developing a series of amortization tables, and be like, I don't remember the stuff from the original class. I don't know how I'm going to get by on this. And so having the foundational knowledge is really important to be able to use advanced methods and advanced techniques. And even though they're not going to be pronounced in every area, they will be pronounced in some areas. So that's going to be very important. All right. With that, covers my questions, except for one more. So everybody in this every group in this classroom was supposed to create a group assignment, teach a class of graduate accounting students about artificial intelligence models and practices. So basically, you're going to replicate this assignment here. You're going to have to do something similar to what I did. And I'm curious, first of all, how you approach this particular question, how you approach this particular issue, you and your group, and secondly, what the results were. Now, this is a little bit informal, so it doesn't need to be everybody speaks for exactly 45 seconds or something like that. You can approach it however you want, but I would like you to address those two particular issues. Like, how did you approach the issue, and what was the general results of the AI's response, or general nature of the AI's response? So with that, I'm just going to start with group number one, which is Jared's group, and you guys can go ahead and present your response.
Oh, we're going.
You're going up front.
Forgot about that.
So basically how we kind of started off this AI prompt was like, act like you're a graduate professor for accounting, and then answer, how would you want to create this assignment? Please be very specific, outline, provide a grading scale and like the requirements for like each deliverable. I kind of took this as more of like a project and not a weekly assignment, which we realized was wrong at the end. But so it kind of broke down each deliverable by each week and what they needed to do and how to accomplish it. And we'll go through it.
Yeah, one of the critiques that we had was that it wanted us to create a whole new AI. And like you were working on creating the AI using like data sets throughout the year. And so I can't remember when the deliverables were due, but like
It was like, so like the first part, like the overview, like stated exactly what we needed for the assignment. Then you could see just like by like each deliverable, it just got like worse and worse with wording, which we didn't realize over there also.
One other thing was that the wording was really weird. It went in circles a lot. It had a good outline of what students needed to do, but it was kind of hard to understand. And like you said, making us create AI. So
Yeah, I mean, it even took us a while to realize that that's what it was asking because of how vague the wording was. We thought that it was right at first, but as we looked over the assignment more, it took all four of us looking at it to really understand what it was getting. So it was very clunky.
yeah, the overview of the project looked like you could do it in like 50 minutes, and then like you just had the deliverables, and it was like, oh yeah, you have to like rate this many queries by this time, or like be able to do this by a certain week. And
I mean, a certain amount of data sets for, I don't know what you need the data sets for, but
So would you have to also create the new AI in like 50 minutes?
I guess so.
Probably a good thing I didn't say that you had to actually implement your activity that you proposed.
I
Creating new AI is
long
time. So, in conclusion on this particular issue, would you say that you were successful in your activity or not successful?
Absolutely not. We missed on a lot of standards because it looked like good format wise, but like if you like just glance at it and got into it, it was interesting.
Okay, well, good job. Group two.
So we also started by using our prompt and telling like the AI, you are I don't think we specifically said graduate, but we said smart accounting professor who is looking to create a hands-on experience for accounting students to learn about AI and some real world applications. And so it kind of produced like a hands-on case study and like some general research.
Yeah, the output of our first prompt was like super vague, like we weren't very specific in the first one. So like it was kind of like confused like what we were even asking them to do. So then we had to like say like what class.
Yeah, because it was focusing on AI and accounting, not like more applicable to our class itself. So we designed the next prompt to like, we kind of told it like what we've been working on using like Excel and Alteryx, to give us a better, more applicable example.
And I just, when they were talking about theirs, where it was a long-term, like weeks-long project or whatever, our initial output also did that too, so I don't know if that's just something it automatically kind of did for everyone. But then whenever we told it, it was more of a short-term, quick assignment. It basically spit out Excel assignment 4 that we did in class, where we had some log of expenses that had different codes and transactions, and we had to be able to identify the anomalies and have some sort of output, some sort of report or a pivot table of some sort to represent those anomalies. The way that it extended beyond that was by saying, now do this same assignment, but put it into Alteryx Intelligence Suite, which is a AI expansion of Alteryx. But when I looked into it, AI or the Alteryx Intelligence Suite deals more with image recognition and advanced text mining than really helping with this project. So I'm not exactly sure how well it would do. But I guess it would be good to see maybe giving it those images of the expenses and then saying, do this project basically, and seeing how it compares to the Excel version and just how long it takes, how accurate it is, and all the different elements.
So the fact that you initially came up with a long-term project, does that kind of suggest that people who are sending prompts like this to the AI tools, the ones who've done this previously are probably looking for long-term projects, and it's just kind of doing a natural repetition of things that have happened previously?
It could be.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
from the data, it's like, most likely.
All right, good job. Group to read.
So we approached it as like a research and learning exercise with AI, where we wanted some project that can kind of enhance the learning of the students. That wasn't all just focused on like the output, but it gave us a huge outline with like it wanted like a 5-page paper and a 12 slideshow, and we're like pretty massive project. I wouldn't want to do that, and it just kind of gave us the outline for what. I guess they wanted the students to focus on with the project.
Yeah, so the deliverables that it ended up spitting out for us to submit were a 5 to 7 page paper on our output, and then also an AI appendix, like all the like messages that we've sent and all the prompts the queries we've put in and all the outputs that the AI has given us. It also wants us to like compare different uses of like different AIs, so like ChatGPT versus Copilot versus Gemini or whatever. And then the last one is that it wanted us to give a 10 to 12 minute page presentation, well, to 10 to 12 minute presentation in class about our results for graders.
Part of the reason why it gave us all that is because when we input our prompts, we said base it off of like the 4 rules that got his name. And so like part 1 and part 2 of the projects are the first 2 rules, and then part 3 and 4 is it implementing and acting in the AI for the deliverable that it produced. So you get hands-on experience of applying his 4 rules. And we had to edit it to make sure that it was emphasizing the 3rd rule, because it kind of is just glossing over that one. It focused more on the first 2 rules. So.
The rubric that it gave us also was out of like 100 points. And it was fairly detailed, so I felt like it was pretty in-depth as to what it was expecting from us.
So it looks like, so from your description and from the description of the other groups, it sounds like we're running into a counterintuitive problem. If you were talking about, like, if I were to hire a graduate student to do this particular problem, then they would probably come up with something that was fairly well thought out and developed, but not being nearly as extensive as something I was looking for. Sounds like the AI tool is doing the exact opposite problem. It's basically saying, here's everything I know about it. You can use all of this. It's a kind of an information overload issue.
Yeah.
Right, good job. Group 4.
So like most of the other groups, we try to be as specific as possible, like giving it a persona. But I tried to initially give it a little bit more information because from using ChatGPT in the past, I knew that a lot of the information that spits out is not that great. So I kind of told it to generate several different assignments that were all pretty clunky and not that great. So I just kind of had to reduce it and make it more like simple and just like do something.
Yeah, a lot of what it was originally spitting out at us wasn't what we were looking for. It was, like other groups have said, very broad, very long assignments consisting of papers and presentations as well. So we eventually narrowed that down into like a 50-minute small group work, kind of like what we do in class. That's what we wanted to build ours off of. We also really wanted to focus in on that third rule. And so what we eventually told it to do was set an assignment up to start with giving AI very short, non-specific prompts, and then gradually starting off with giving it a persona and then gradually getting more and more specific and comparing the two outputs and having the students kind of see for themselves how different your output can be after using those different personas.
Yeah, kind of, a different flaw that we ran into is, if the first prompt had a too detailed persona or character for the AI to imitate, it kind of boxed itself in and would only go into that area. I noticed on my computer while we were working on it, that even after I tried to start a new chat and remove some of those persona details, it tried to replicate the previous chat. And I could not figure out how to get it to do something different with that.
So you ran into a problem of wanting the AI to write papers or to develop presentations, which sounds like a little bit like you've got educators in this area. That's kind of what their jam is. That's what they make students do. And that's not necessarily what students want to be doing with an activity. So it sounds to me like you were running into a little bit of an existing bias that was present in the algorithm. And how do you answer something like that? How do you get past something like that?
I was a little bit more specific in the prompts. I was like, make this sound like we're teaching 5-year-olds. So like, I just try to like make it as basic as possible and just like.
I mean, when in doubt, go with what Michael Scott would do. Okay, right there with you. Yeah.
Last group.
Ours is pretty similar to what everybody had said. It started off pretty vague.
Yeah, the initial prompt was super vague. I think I like put verbatim the second sentence of your question, and it gave us very similar results. It was like a 5-week research project or something like that. I did think it was interesting. I feel like it did a decent job of like relating the topics of AI and accounting. It gave suggestions about like machine learning for fraud detection or like robotic process automation for bookkeeping. So I thought that was interesting. Well, we started there and it was like we said, it was like a 5-week research paper project. So then from there, we tried to add some prompts in there.
So then we kind of structured it like our classes, like we have a Monday class with more research based, a discussion on Wednesday and then quiz on Friday. And it gave us a better outline. Some of the topics were, you know, like too niche and like didn't really cover like a general overview of everything. Or they were just really vague and had no specifics. Yeah, so relating to the third rule, we tried to tell it like what kind of AI it was. So we were saying like you're a graduate professor, like a little bit too niche, like too specific, try to be more broad instead of came out with better outcome.
So what were some examples of the niche topics that you were talking about?
It was like AI used for customer service, and I was like, not really, we're trying to look more at like an overview of AI rather than one specific area. That was because it broke it down by like groups, like one group was supposed to focus on this and then present to the class about it. And so it's kind of, we're trying to get more of a overview of everything, I guess.
So this is a little bit of interesting thought experiment. Did anybody just come away with this, just say like saying, we nailed it, we got it perfect, exactly where we want it to be? Does that kind of give me a little bit of pause for how the use of AI tools is going to be, how challenging it may be in the future? I mean, it definitely is one of those things that you approached it in a particular context and you were able to model and kind of filter out the junk and the noise. But this also kind of explains that if you aren't very clear and very precise on your prompts, that it will give you a lot of additional noise, and trying to get rid of that. It's basically a version of data analysis, because remember, we have that data cleaning that we have to perform and the validation, and we're doing the same thing. It's just on this one, it's a little bit less structured. It's something that we've got to kind of filter out based on providing additional prompts to the tool. So I think, again, this will be improved in the future, but it's important to understand now is that when you're looking for something that's very specific, then you have to be very specific to the AI tool. And it was a very kind of interesting activity exercise hearing what everybody ran into. I will say this is exactly what I run into whenever I have an AI tool. In the past, I've said, here's what I specifically want. Do not provide any more content or context in this. And guess what the AI tools do? They still do it. Yeah, they still say, I say 20 words or fewer, and then it provides me with 50 words. And it said, well, my initial prompt was less than 20 words, but like, yeah, I thought you might like this additional information. Yeah, so that's something that we've got some challenges in the forward to. I think as we get more exposure to this and more comfortable with this, that it'll become easier for us to develop those prompts. But right now, we're all still learning. The good news for me is that I've only got 10 more years that I have to worry to develop about this. You guys about 40 ahead of you. So yeah, you're gonna have plenty of time and exposure to getting used to this. So that's something to look forward to. All right. No class on Friday. So enjoy your pseudo break, and we'll be back on Monday for our last assignment.